Good afternoon. So thank you very much for attending the talk by ANGUS Chemical Company. My name is Kim Long. I'm the Customer Application Specialist for ANGUS Chemical Company. So today, I would like to share a bit on the ANGUS TRIS AMINO, specifically how our fully integrated process helps the company to be reliable in their manufacturing process, enables full traceability in the biopharmaceutical manufacturing, and the way that we manufacture helps your whole supply chain to be secure. Now, specifically, what is TRIS AMINO? TRIS AMINO is also commonly known as trometamol or trometamine. It's a critical excipient for use in bioprocessing, for purification, or for stabilization of bioproteins. So a quick overview of the agenda today. What I'll do is I'll give a brief introduction to ANGUS Chemical Company, what exactly is ANGUS Life Sciences about, the considerations for biologics manufacturing, how exactly is our integrated synthesis and our stringent method control helps with the biopharmaceutical manufacturing. And of course, what is our dedication to life sciences as a company. So ANGUS Chemical Company is a really long history way back in 1930s, where we started under the name of Commercial Solvent Corporation. Till today, we are still the only company in the world that is dedicated to nitroalkane production and their derivatives. And using this chemistry, we have been serving the industry for more than 75 years in different applications like coatings, metalworking fluids, personal care, and of course, life sciences. Now, nitroalkane is absolutely essential in the production of TRIS, because it's a part of the derivation process, as I'll show later. Now, we serve the industry based on the customer application center model, where we have application centers. There are key laboratories placed in strategic regions to serve the customers in terms of formulation needs, technical formulations, or even regulatory needs. Now, as a responsible care company, we ensure that all the processes we use to manufacture our products does not harm the environment that we operate in. Of course, the chemistries that we put into the end consumer products must not harm the end consumers. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are the only company dedicated to nitroalkane production. What do we exactly do? We start from very basic material like propane and ammonia. As a matter of fact, we are the only company in the world that does nitration of propane under high temperature and pressure. No one else in the world does this because it's extremely complicated and it's hard to control. But we do it because it's highly efficient, and in effect, we are able to control the whole process extremely well. So from nitroalkane, which is a derivation, in the past we used to do it as a solvent sales, but it has a lot more value than as a solvent. So we started doing derivation into nitro alcohol, and then subsequently into amino alcohol, and of course amino alcohol derivatives. Every single product that comes out is from a fully integrated plant, right from the basic raw material all the way to the derivation. In this way, we are able to control the purity and the consistency of all the products that comes out. Now, specifically for life sciences, the key material that is used is amino alcohol. Oops, sorry. The key material that is used is amino alcohol, as you can see there. So specifically, we are going to talk about TRIS AMINO. So in ANGUS Life Sciences, we generally categorize our involvement into three broad categories. The intermediates we have goes into synthesis of small molecules for either pharmaceutical or agricultural products. The buffer systems goes into biologics, cell culture, or blood fractionation. And the buffer systems are also used in diagnostic reagents. So why is there a specific concentration on biotechnology? Now, we do know that in the general pharmaceutical industry right now, there is a trend towards therapeutic proteins. But why? Because therapeutic proteins have very high target specificity, and they help to reduce off-target effects, which is very crucial for the small molecule drugs. They typically have systemic effects. In addition, there are many different diseases that cannot be properly treated by small molecule drugs. For instance, cancer or diabetics. So, in essence, biological drugs helps to bridge the gap in diseases that are not adequately treated by small molecules. Now, if you look at the chart here, you notice that there's a major difference in molecular weight between the large molecules on the left, on your right, sorry, and then the small molecule like an aspirin on the corner. So you can notice that in terms of the size differences, it's extremely huge. We can do a synthetic chemistry for aspirin or small molecules like steroids or antibiotics, but it's not possible for large molecules because they are inherently complex, made up of chains of amino acids. Technically, it's possible, but economically, it's not feasible. So there are major differences in the molecular weights, and for biological drugs, they are highly dependent on their secondary and tertiary structures, which means the order in which the amino acids are placed is critical for its function. This also implies that the manufacturing process for such biological drugs is very complex, and they always require a living system as compared to a chemical synthesis. Because a living system is used, the regulatory demands are extremely stringent. And we also did a recent survey of 10 top pharmaceutical companies. We realized that more than 70% of the pipelines in these companies are based on protein drugs, and about 30% are based on small molecule drugs. So indeed, there's a trend towards biological products. And if we have an overview of the manufacturing process, we notice that it's broadly categorized into two streams, the upstream processing and the downstream processing. So in the upstream processing, we typically deal with the buffer production, the selection of the clones that are able to produce the biological drug. And in downstream production, that's when we start to extract the active ingredient, go through a whole series of purification. Now, in this complex process, there are many different factors that can affect the production of the biological drug. In a recent review of the production process, we know that there are many factors that can affect the integrity of the protein drug that's coming out. Critically, metals is one of the key factors that affect the protein drug, and the metals can come from either the process equipment or the raw materials that goes into the production process. Effects will be such as like aggregation, oxidation, or hydrolysis of the protein drug. And in the overview survey of the key metals that affect the integrity of the protein, there will be metals like aluminium, chromium, copper, iron, nickel, and zinc. All of them give rise to either metal-catalyzed oxidation, site-specific modification, variability in peptide mapping, which affects your quality control because you might not be actually measuring the right protein, or destabilization or aggregation of the product. All in all, is a very bad adverse effect on the biological drug product. Now, besides the production process and the control of metals, there are other critical factors to consider when choosing a supplier for your TRIS amino product. So for example, the source of the raw material is typically fixed. What do I mean by this? They can be either chemically synthesized or organism-derived. So this is what we call an inherent material property. More often than not, we try to go for chemically synthesized raw material because it's fully defined and it's easily controlled. However, there are many different factors that are not within the control of the supplier or the raw material. Things like safety, quality, consistency of the product, whether the product is in compliance with different regulatory authorities, whether your supplier is able to give you a continuity of supply, and whether the supplier is able to give you a fully transparent supply chain. Is it traceable? Is the supply chain actually auditable? And when we talk about auditable, we are not talking about paper trails. We're talking about actual plant visit, looking at how the product is manufactured from the basic raw material all the way to what you're getting in your warehouse. And of course, for major biopharmas, global sourcing can be an issue, especially when you have plants around the world. And environmental stewardship is also critical. Why? Imagine you work with a supplier who has absolutely no concern with the manufacturing methods, dumping toxic waste into the environment. One day when it gets found out, your reputation gets affected too, because this supplier is actually supplying you with the raw material. And according to EU guidelines, there's actually a statement on the choice of supplier. Where possible, starting materials should always be purchased directly from the manufacturer of the starting material. Now, this is where ANGUS gives a great value to the industry. Why? Because ANGUS is in fact the original innovator of the TRIS amino product. We started the first TRIS amino crystal production back in 1950s. In 1967, we patented the TRIS amino continuous manufacturing process, and over the years, we have constantly improved our processes. And as a matter of fact, we have been supporting the life sciences industry for more than 50 years, using our ultra pures, using our new reactors, and now we are even building new plants to support the boost in the biologics industry. So in ANGUS, we are the only fully integrated TRIS amino manufacturer in the world with 100% traceability down to actual raw material like propane and ammonia, and clear line of sight to base material. So as I mentioned earlier, the way we do it as a fully integrated manufacturer allows stringent controls of raw material, all the way single site integrated synthesis at a single site, allowing us to give different grades and different compendia like the ultra pure, the buffer, and the crystal. And this is a snapshot of different plants that we have in ANGUS. Our main plant in Sterlington, Louisiana, on the top right-hand corner. You notice there's always blue sky. There is never a day that we will shut down because we need a blue sky policy. And on the bottom of it is our plant in Ibbenbüren, Germany. And we have a third plant in Niagara Falls, New York, where it's a specialized plant for specification and customized packaging for the pharmaceutical industry. All three plants operate under ISO certification in cGMP compliance. So these are extremely strict regulatory demands. We also understand that in the biopharmaceutical industry, there is a concern on knowing elemental impurity because these materials are all used in the bioproduction. So there is always a need to control and quantify the elemental impurity in the manufacturing process. This is needed to maintain production efficiency, ensure biological drug integrity and safety. Because as I mentioned earlier, metal traces can actually affect your biological drug. And sometimes the details on elemental impurities are not always available to you. Now this is where ANGUS can make a difference. In our TRIS amino ultra pure product, we have the lowest metal impurity in the world. Why do I say that? If we look at the USB list of elemental impurity and we compare it to comparable grades of product in the market, you notice that our metal impurity is maybe like 2 to 6 times lower as compared to the markets. And if we look at the metals known to affect biologics, And if we look at the metals known to affect biologics on the left-hand corner, things like aluminum, chromium, copper, iron, nickel, the level of control that we have is 2 to 8 times lower than the market standards. So this is for TRIS amino ultra pure, the base form of TRIS. Now, if you look at TRIS amino hydrochloric prime, which is an absolutely new to the world product for us, this has the absolutely lowest level of metal, because we do understand that metals causes the protein aggregation in the production process. Now, if we look at the level of metals for the hydrochloric prime, by the USP listing, this is about 6 to 9 times lower than the market standards. And if, of course, for the critical part, which would be the metals that affect the biological drugs, like aluminum, chromium, copper, iron, nickel, and zinc, the same few, we are 14 to 19 times lower in terms of the metal control. Why are we able to do this? That's because, as I mentioned earlier, our synthesis process is fully integrated right down to raw materials like propane and ammonia. And when we have the full control of the plant, derivation all the way to the end product, we are able to consistently and always control the metal and the quality of the product. So when working with Angus, the Ultra Pure and the HCl Prime are of course the buffer systems of choice for the lowest level of elemental impurities, and this minimizes the bioproduction risk from exposure to elemental impurity, essentially protecting your biologics production. Besides being a powerhouse in producing TRIS AMINO and these buffer systems, of course we are customer facing in terms of our capabilities in packaging. We allow sourcing around the world. We have our own in-house analytical capabilities like a cGMP facility, ISO certified biological testing to specific requirements, technical service around the world, and of course multi-compendial products for the different needs of the producer. And in terms of warehousing, we have cGMP warehousing, and of course inventory reservation if there's a need. In certain territories, we offer same-day shipping when needed. And front end, we have sales and customer services in terms of source information, bulk and custom pricing for our customers, and of course, confirmation of customer specification when there is a customized spec for customers. Supply chain with Angus is also straightforward because you are directly getting it from the producer, ANGUS Life Sciences, or it could be via a Angus partner, and you will be an appointed partner, not unknown partners in between that it goes through many multiple distribution chains. This helps all the biopharmas to be fully traceable in terms of their raw material. It's absolutely transparent, and it's auditable right down to the ground, not just on paper trails. So as a global company, of course, we have global reach around the world, and with our customer application centers, we are very local focused in terms of technical expertise or regulatory compliance. Our headquarters is in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. As I mentioned, we have 2 plants, one in Sterlington and one in Iberbrunn, Germany, and our specialized packaging and specification plant in Niagara Falls. And as I mentioned earlier, we have application centers, which are essentially laboratories around the world, of course, in our headquarters, in Latin America, in France, India, Singapore, and Shanghai to serve our key territories. So in ANGUS Life Sciences, what we do is to bring a strong commitment to meet your needs in pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and diagnostic market. And because we are the very primary producer, we can provide the best products at your R&D stage, to your pilot stage, all the way to your production stage. And it's an ongoing commitment to Angus, and it's always what we do. So if I put it in a few words, working with Angus, essentially you're getting quality products, fully traceable down to actual raw material like propane and ammonia. You are working with a reliable supplier, and we always want to collaborate with our partners because if there is a custom specification or custom need, that's where we are able to come in. And in our manufacturing processes, we always innovate according to the market needs. So in short, we work with the best in industry, helping them to perform even better with our range of chemistries. Thank you.